Hi everyone, my name is Martin, Business Development Manager at Carlisle College. Thank you very much for attending this afternoon. This is the second of our live events for Project Next Gen. Project Next Gen is a programme to help equip you with all the tools, resources and support you might need to secure an apprenticeship or future employment. We're kindly joined today by Hello Future, the Hello Future team delivering this session on communicating confidently. So all about preparing you for the world of work, how to communicate in the world of work, how to communicate in an interview situation, and just really helping you to be successful when you're employed or when you're sort of preparing for employment. Little bit of housekeeping. Obviously we can't see or hear you. You can see and hear us, hopefully. But if you would like to interact in any way, there is the chat function. So please don't hesitate to ask any questions, queries, anything you sort of want to put to myself or the Hello Future team. And please just interact with us. And I'm sure we'll spend a couple of minutes at the end just answering any questions or queries you might have. Just one thing to note as sort of we go through the presentation, as part of the Project Next Gen program, we'd really like it if you could sort of continue to engage with the resources that are on our website and also the future live sessions. So we hold at least one or two every month. By actually kind of participating in the program, you will be in receipt of a certificate at the very end. So it's a Project Next Gen certificate, and basically just to say that you have engaged with employability support, guidance, and you've learned all of these new tools, and that you can then use that when it comes to interviews. So I would recommend taking that certificate along with you just to showcase the fact that actually you have been engaged with a really high profile employability and careers program. So it's another way to make you stand out. If you would like to sort of take part and be a registered participant, there is a short survey to fill out, and we'd ask you to continue to fill that out each and every time you come to an event. So I will put that in the chat box just in a couple of moments, and we will send that out directly to you as well. So if you could fill that in for us, you'll be part of the program, and as I say, by the end, which is in September, you will get that certificate of achievement. So I'm going to hand over now to Rosa and the Hello Future team to deliver this session for us.
Great, thank you for that introduction, Martin, and the introduction to Project Next Gen as well. So today we're going to be talking about communicating confidently, but before we get into that, I'd just like to introduce everyone that's on the call. So firstly, there's myself. So hi everyone, I'm Abby. I'm the graduate intern for the Furness area, and I will be delivering this session alongside Rosa. If you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Rosa and I'm the graduate intern for the West area of Cumbria.
And Rosa's going to be monitoring the chat box, so any questions, put them in there and that's completely fine, and she can shout them out as we go along. And finally, we also have Jack on the call, who is just going to sit with his camera and his microphone off. So getting into the session. So first of all, on the screen now, you'll see a big list of organisations, of universities, of colleges, and these are our partners. So we work alongside these partners to give you information, advice and guidance about higher education, and this will kind of allow you to choose what you want to do after you have finished school, college or sixth form. So the ultimate goal of us and our partners is to give you all the information you need to make an informed decision about your future, hopefully progressing on to higher education, whether that be through a degree apprenticeship, a higher apprenticeship or through university. So I'm going to pass over to Rosa now to explain the aims and outcomes.
So the aims and outcomes for this session are firstly to explore how communicating confidently can benefit you in education and the workplace. So this is a skill that you're going to be using your whole lives, your whole career. And so this is just kind of to explore how exactly this is going to be able to help you in life. The second aims and outcome is to identify your individual communication skills and areas for improvement. So whenever you're improving a skill, it's also all about self-reflection. So we're going to reflect a little bit on how we've found communication skills throughout our lives, and hopefully that will give you some tools to think about how you can also reflect on this skill. The third outcome is to explore the effects of lockdown on communication. Now, me and Abby have both graduated and also started a new job during lockdown. So we really know how communication has changed throughout the past year. And we'd also like to hear your own thoughts about this as well. And we'll get into that later in the session.
So firstly, why does it matter to be able to communicate confidently? Well, communication is something that you guys will all use on a daily basis, whether that's just talking to your friends, talking to your teachers, talking to your family, but it is a really important skill that you'll need to develop for your future, especially when it comes to kind of marketing yourself and selling your strengths when you go on to maybe interviews for universities or interviews for employers or anything like that. And when we're talking about communication, we're kind of meaning all forms of it. So whether that is written communication, whether it's speaking or anything like that. So as you can see on screen, we've got some little pictures of different forms of communication that you might use. The first one we've got is a mobile phone. So some of you guys might be really confident in talking on your phone, especially on things like Facebook and stuff like that. But phones are becoming more of a vital tool within the workplace, and being able to talk over the phone can be quite a skill that needs to be developed. The next we have is a little computer screen. So being able to talk in a written form and being able to sell yourself by writing, whether that be a job application document, your UCAS statements, anything like that is really important. And with this kind of skill, knowing your audience and the way that you should be typing is important. We've also got a little megaphone. So this is to represent kind of presenting skills and being able to talk confidently, loudly, and making sure that you're saying things that make sense. And finally, we've got the Wi-Fi icon. And this year has obviously been a bit of a weird year. We've all had to adapt to talking more online and through Wi-Fi. And that has come with a whole load of new problems, but ways that we can overcome them, which we will talk to you about in a few slides.
So I'm going to talk a bit about how communication has changed, firstly between school and college. So here we have some testimonials from other learners we've worked with about how they found their communication skills have developed from going from school to a college environment. And also I'll just stress at the start that all of the skills that these guys talk about here really do go on to develop further as you go on to higher education and then into the workplace. So some of the things that learners in the past have spoken about is being more confident in speaking up in a group. Now, as you go through life, you will have to work more and more in group settings. And I think that one of the key things about communication skills is that it gets better with practice. And so the more you do it, the more you put yourselves in those situations, the more that you will improve. Another student had talked about the fact that they could talk to tutors more openly in a college setting than in a school setting. And again, if you go to higher education from this, the higher up you go, the more of an equal footing you are on with your tutors, which makes things a lot easier when it comes to talking to them. I know that especially in school, you know, there's quite a big discrepancy between student and teacher, but this changes as you go through education and then on into the workplace. Another student said that they could approach new people. And again, this is something that really comes with practice. I know that we've had a question kind of about meeting new people, and we'll talk about that later as well. But the more you go through life, the more new people you're going to meet. When you go to a new college, if you go to a different university, if you go to a different workplace, there is always going to be new people to meet. And so that is another skill that can really be developed just through going through life. And then finally, we had a learner talk about the fact that their written communication skills have really improved. And again, written communication is such an important form of communication. Whatever role you go into, you will have to do some form of written communication, whether those are reports, self-reflections, essays, articles or journals or something like that. So I think it's a really good skill that you'll keep on honing as you go through. And especially that student mentions the application process. The more you go through life, the more you'll have to keep on applying to different things, applying to university, applying to jobs. And so I think a really key thing here is that kind of don't worry in a way, because you will be given so many opportunities in your life to improve these communication skills.
So we now just want to pause for a moment and just ask you guys, how has your communication changed in the past year? So if you have any reflections, if you'd like to just pop them in the chat, but me and Rosa are just going to talk through this as well. So Rosa, how do you think your communication has changed in the past year?
So I think for both of us, we had to graduate during COVID, during lockdown, which meant that, I know for me, I had to write my dissertation from this very desk. And I had to go to lectures and things online. And the key thing I found, I don't know if, the people on this call also found this from having to study at home as well, but me and my friends made a study group where we'd meet online at a specific time. And some of those Zoom calls lasted for 8 hours or something like that, because we would just stay on them and then, have lunch together and things. But finding different ways of connecting with people and connecting with fellow students was a really big way that communication changed. You couldn't just meet up in the library or just see them at a lecture. You had to really make an effort in that way. How about for you, Abby?
Yeah, I would say pretty similar, especially starting a new job and communicating online was quite hard, because you kind of miss out on them conversations that you would have normally in the workplace. But I think the use of Teams and still being able to just chat, even though it's an online way, made it quite easy to fit in as well. Has anything come through in the chat at all, Rosa?
Nothing has, so I think we can move on.
Great. So on the screen now, this might look like quite a big scary list of all the different ways that you will have to communicate, but we're not going to cover them all today. We're just going to cover some of the key ones that myself and Rosa thought were quite important. So the first ones we're going to cover is kind of the video call and online presentation. These are becoming more and more common, especially after the year that we've had. Employers are starting to recruit online and asking you to do online interviews, and that can be quite intimidating because you're not in that usual interview setting. You're sat at home and it can be hard to kind of get into the zone. But for that, we would just say, make sure that you practice and just give it a go, and it will hopefully all go well for you. So it's just one of them things that you've just got to practice, really. The next one that we really wanted to focus on was active listening. And this was something when myself and Rosa have had conversations, we didn't really know how to do before we started university, but it is a really important skill, especially if you're going into something like interviews, to show that you're engaged with the employer and that you are listening to what they're saying. And this can just be stuff like making eye contact, nodding your head, saying things like, yes, as they're talking, just to show that you're listening and taking in what they're saying. And the final one that we thought was important to cover was written communication. It's important to note here that the way that you communicate when you write can differ from who you are communicating with. So for example, if you're sending a formal email to one of your teachers or tutors, that is going to be a completely different way, the way that you text your friends. And it's just really important to bear that in mind, that you need to think about the tone of the message that you're sending and who you're sending it to.
So just to wrap up this section, we just thought we'd have a really nice quote from the psychologist Paul Watzlawick, who says that you cannot not communicate. So this is just to emphasize that even if you're not doing really any of those ways of communicating, even if you're just yourself in a room, by the way you're dressed, by the way you're presenting yourself, by your body language, by all of those things, you're still communicating with the people around you. And that is still true. We'll talk about this later in the interview section, but that is still true even when you're online in an interview setting. Your environment, how you're dressed, people can still see that stuff, even though it's still sometimes a little bit more difficult to communicate in other ways online. You can still communicate effectively.
So we're now going to move on to talk more exclusively about interviews. And when you're going for an interview in the future, really just think of this as a chance to sell yourself to the employer. Why should they want to hire you? And the way that they're going to find this out is by asking you questions. So we've got an example question on the screen, and I'm just going to ask this to Rosa now, and she's going to give you a response. So, Rosa, please can you give me an example of a time that you've worked well in a team?
Yeah. I really like working in teams. I really enjoy it. I've done it a lot in previous roles, and yeah, I think it's one of my main strengths.
Great, thank you, Rosa. So I want you guys to just reflect on what Rosa has just said there, and do you think that that was a good or a bad example of a question answer?
Hopefully there was some slightly positive points.
So now you've had a little bit of a time to think. The answer that Rosa gave was not the best. Rosa, would you like to talk through some of the things that you did well?
Yeah, I mean, I think I use my hands, maybe not in the most effective way, but they were there. And I also kind of tried to look at the camera sometimes, which is quite nice. And also I did stay on topic in that I was still talking about working in a team, which was okay.
Yeah, definitely. Some of the things that Rosa didn't do quite well was that she used a lot of fillers when she was speaking. She also didn't give a specific example, which is what the question had asked her to do. So there is one way that you can make sure you are hitting all these points in an interview setting, and this is by using the STAR technique. So STAR is an acronym that stands for Situation, Task, Action, Result. And this will help you to structure your answer when you are asked a question in an interview. So we're just going to look at this in a little bit more detail because it is a really important tool that you can use. So situation. This is where you set the stage about the situation that you faced. So it gives you a chance to give the employer some background around what you were doing. Give them a little bit of context. The next part is the task. So discuss the task that was set for you and what your responsibility was within the task. The action. What specifically did you do to complete the task? What was your role? What actions did you take? And then finally, the result. So as a result of the actions you took, what happened? This can be small scale and large scale results that were achieved by what you did. So to hopefully highlight this a little bit more, I am now going to answer the question that I asked Rosa. So can you give an example of a time that you worked well in a team? So one time that I worked well in a team was when I was at university and I was on the biology committee. And this committee would organise social events for members to come along to. So one particular example was when we organised a recycling event. So this was a week-long recycling event, which we termed the Eco Drive. My specific role in this was to help organise the social media posts, to man a stand in the student union, organise guest speakers, and organise some prizes for the raffle. So I helped to promote this on social media, especially using Facebook and Instagram. I manned the stand in the stall. So when people came into the union, I would hand out flyers to them, and I helped organise prizes and made sure they came in time for our raffle. We communicated as a team to make sure we were able to stay on schedule and that everyone was able to manage the workload. The result of this was that we were able to run a really successful event where loads of students and members of the public turned up to listen to our guest speakers and get involved with the activities that we held. And as well as this, it has been something that has been run again after I left university to help encourage recycling on the university campus. So now I'm going to hand over to Rosa, who is going to answer the question using the STAR technique. Can you give an example of a time where you worked well under pressure?
Yes, so I was a member of a society committee at university, and we put on 2 shows a month, one every 2 weeks. So this was obviously quite regular. I was a committee member, so I was first a qualities rep, and then I went on in my third year to be the vice president of the society. But within these shows, I would often take on the role of director. I would also help to write these shows. Often they were kind of originally written within the space of those 2 weeks, and also sometimes help perform in the shows. So as director of these shows, I would often have to organise rehearsal schedules with the cast. I would need to source props and liaise with other committee members to help organise the marketing of the shows to make sure that people knew it was happening. I would also need to make sure that the tech for the show was all organised and that the person who was running the tech knew what they were doing, knew the set list, knew what was going on, all of those kind of things. And I would also have to organise that set list and organise ticket sales as well. So, and monitor that to make sure that we would have an audience for the shows. So in my second year, the society that I was on the committee for won the Best Performing Arts Society of the Year award from our SU. And many of the shows sold out. And one of the reasons actually that we won this award was because of our output and because we were seen as one of the most active performing arts societies at the uni. And also it meant that because of the amount of shows we ran, we increased our membership quite heavily, which meant that at the end of the year, we took a lot of people to go to the Edinburgh Fringe with us, and we increased the amount of people we were able to take with us because we'd been able to have more money to be able to fund more people going, and we had the membership to do it.
Great, thank you, Rosa. And hopefully them 2 examples have really shown you how the STAR technique can help you to structure your answers and how you can maybe think about some situations that you could apply to the STAR technique.
So I'm just going to talk a little bit about online interviews specifically, because obviously, even though we're moving back to more face-to-face contact, online interviews are something that will probably stick around in some form or another. So here are some just key thoughts to have in your mind when you're setting yourself up for an online interview. The first of those is your background. As you can see, both me and Abby have blurred backgrounds, and we have our kind of job title and the Hello Future logo on our screens. This is partly so that, you know, we look professional, but it also really helps if you are unable to kind of find a blank wall or maybe an appropriate space in your house or wherever you're taking the interview to do a call. If you can, I would recommend that it was quite a plain wall, and also that you had good lighting. So if you're in quite a dark room, that can be quite difficult. Right now, I'm facing a window, which means that I've got light on my face, which is quite useful. So do consider that when you're trying to set up where you're going to take your interview. The second point is to use your frame. So when you go on to a Zoom call or a Teams call or whatever kind of platform you're using, it will usually give you a preview of what your frame looks like before you enter the call. This can be really, really useful for making sure that there's not just a random box or something in the corner, or there's not something in your frame that you hadn't considered. It can also be useful to make sure that your whole head and shoulders are in the frame, so that you're able to kind of, you know, look at, have as much in the frame as you need. The third point is to make eye contact. Now, obviously, this is quite difficult when you're in an online setting because, you know, you're not face to face. And so it's quite difficult to give the indication that you are trying to make eye contact. But you can either try to look at the camera, or you can look also at the screen. I think a big thing is that oftentimes, and it's quite difficult when you're, you know, working from home, but if there's something going on around you, just really try to stay focused. And if you can, make sure that you're in a quiet space where you're not going to be disturbed during your interview. The final point are visual cues. So again, this kind of comes into using your frame as well, because it's really useful if you're able to use your hands and use hand gestures whilst in an interview setting or in any kind of professional setting, because it shows you're engaged and it also helps to emphasize your points. But the thing is that when you're online, it's your hands need to be higher up than they'd need to be if you were in person. And so again, considering your frame and how you're doing that, it can feel a bit unnatural when you first start doing it, but it's really helpful for, again, presenting yourself in the best light.
So that wraps up our main kind of content. On the screen now, you'll see that we've got a few discussion points, which we've put together from the questions that you will have asked when you filled out the form, but please do feel free to put any questions that pop into your head into the chat function, and me and Rosa will answer them to the best of our ability. So the first question we got is, how do you become more confident when communicating? Rosa, would you like to answer that one first, and I'll go after you?
Sorry, Zoom just closed for a second. I'm back. See, this is exactly the kind of thing that, you know, can really happen on your online event. I'd say the first thing for, you know, becoming more confident whilst communicating, I found a really helpful thing for me were extracurricular activities. I did debating when I was in high school, and I think that really helped to improve specifically my public speaking skills, because before that point I would get really shaky before I did any kind of public speaking, and I become really nervous, and having that kind of setting where I was kind of forced to practice my public speaking was really, really helpful. What about you, Abby?
Yeah, definitely. I would completely agree. When I was in school, I was terrified to put my hand up to answer any questions. I was really, really quiet, didn't really put myself out there to speak. And the way that I was able to overcome that was by pushing myself out of my comfort zone, especially with the help of my teachers who guided me to go for head girl at my sixth form. And as part of that, I had to speak in front of the entire school. And that absolutely petrified me. It filled me with, honestly, with dread. But once I got into it, and after I'd done the first year group, I felt a lot better, and I could kind of get into the flow of it a lot more. And I think since then, just practicing and pushing myself out of my comfort zone has really helped me being able to communicate better. Martin, I don't know if you have anything you'd like to add on to this point at all.
Sorry, my Zoom did the same there. That was
It's awful. Yeah. Very frustrating.
No, I don't. Apologies, and I'm just trying to get the screen reloaded. No, I don't have anything to add on to onto what you just mentioned there. Because I think that you covered everything that I would have said. So no, thank you for that.
No worries. Okay, so on to the next question. How did you prepare for interviews and presentations where you needed to communicate? Rosa, I'll hand over to you again first.
I mean, I think we've discussed this before, and I think both of us did this. When we prepared to interview for this job, we both did a mock interview with our mums, which was really good and was really helpful, actually. And I would say that doing mock interviews is a really nice way of preparing yourself, especially with someone who will hopefully be quite, you know, will give you feedback, but won't be awful to you. Good old mum. Yeah, and I'd say also that looking up interview questions is a really helpful tip as well. So just Googling, you know, general interview questions can be a really good way of using those as templates to prepare answers for, and using the STAR technique, writing out your answers and having those as a bank of questions that you can rely on in an interview setting. Abby, what about you?
Yeah, definitely. So preparing for interviews and presentations, I am one of them people that has to practice, because I still do get quite nervous when it comes to presenting. What I would say is definitely try and practice with someone. If you've got a careers advisor at school or parent or carer at home, definitely try practice, because it was even little things like knowing how to share my screen on Teams. I had no idea how to do that. But practicing with my mum and getting my mum to show me what I needed to do really helped me feel a bit more at ease for when I was going on to my interview. Okay, on to the next question. How do you control nerves when meeting new people? Rosa, do you want to take it away?
I think it's one of those hard things because, well, firstly, I would say that starting this job was quite nerve-wracking because we were starting online. Both me and Abby started this job in December, and we were very lucky because the team we work with are amazing, but it was both of our first job really out of uni. And I think it was quite nerve-wracking, you know, meeting all these new people, especially in an online setting. And I think that's a really fair thing to still feel. Again, I would say the best cure for it is practice and putting yourself out there and putting yourselves into situations where you are a bit nervous, but you know, it's through that you'll get better, and you'll know your own strength more and more as you go through it. Abby or Martin, do either of you guys have a thing to say there?
Yeah, I'll comment on that one. So within my career over, say, the last 10 years, I've had to meet lots of new people, and also my role has been very sales orientated. So it's often about presenting to people and really getting to know customers and understand their needs, and trying to provide solutions to those needs. So I've got to interact with lots of people from lots of different backgrounds, and it can be nerve-wracking when you meeting new people, certainly. And I think what Rosa said about practicing, it does really help, and it does make perfect. And one of the things that I would almost say about meeting new people, and what can really sort of help ease those nerves a little bit and make the whole situation a bit easier, is to really concentrate on being yourself and nice and vibrant, and I think that can kind of hide a lot of your nerves and almost 1,000 sins. If you're that really nice person in the room who everyone wants to speak to, that can kind of cover up any lack of experience or knowledge, and I think actually asking questions and being interested as well. So especially when you're meeting new people, and if they're maybe slightly older than you, more mature, or you know, a lot more maybe experienced or senior to you, it's easy to feel quite intimidated and vulnerable almost, but I think just being interested in what they have to say and asking questions about, so you know, what does that mean, kind of, can you tell me a little bit more about that, that can help to inform you. It can make you look engaged, and it can kind of get kind of put those nerves to one side, really. So that would be my advice.
Yeah, definitely, and that is definitely great advice. I think one thing that I'd add on is that before this call, me and Rosa were saying that we were a little bit nervous about presenting, and I'm sure none of you guys even realised. So I think one thing to bear in mind is, even if you are nervous, that's not always a bad thing, because it can make you come across more confident, and it just shows that you care about what's happening. But everyone still gets nervous. It's not going to be just you, everyone's in that position, and I think to just think about it that way really helped me get over my nervousness, especially when going to university and starting a new job, that kind of thing. Has there been any questions in the chat, Rosa?
There hasn't so far,
No
although
worries.
do please send them in if you guys have any more. We're
Yeah.
happy to chat through any of them.
So on to our final question. How have you found communicating over Microsoft Teams and Zoom? Martin, I'm going to hand this one over to you first, just because you'll have gone from communicating in an office environment with real life people to over the internet. How have you kind of found that transition with working?
Yeah, I think it's been certainly interesting, somewhat challenging, but also you know, it definitely has its positives as well as its negatives. So I think for us, you know, within office environments and within businesses, it helps us to engage with lots of different people very quickly and very easily. So actually helps us to establish more connections than ever before. So I'm sure somebody going into the world of work, actually, you might not have met some people from different departments or different locations if they've got sites around the country, and now it's very easy to really enhance your network and meet people for kind of small quick chats online. It's really helpful for that. And also there's things such as breakout rooms, so if you're in a big group event, you can kind of have your own little mini session within that event. So it's really good for collaboration and partnership working. Some of the negatives to it, of course, is that it's not the same as being together in a room where you can easily and quickly sort of express ideas and read other people much more easily. So it's definitely got its pros and cons, but I think in this new world, we all sort of have to try our best with the technology, because I think it's definitely here to stay. And even outside of kind of this strange COVID time, I think it will be kind of a hybrid model between face-to-face and online. So I think it's really important that we can try and utilize the technology that we have and get familiar with it.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for that. Rosa, do you have anything that you'd like to add on?
Yeah, I think for us, we experienced starting a new role via Teams. And I think that was something that I found really nice actually, is the fact that because we use Teams, you're able to just pop up on chat to someone quite easily, which is quite nice, because the way that Hello Future works is that we're all based in different locations. So actually me and Abby wouldn't work in the same space, even if we were face to face. But because we're on Teams, I'm able to just talk to Abby, just pop up and chat. If we want to have a coffee break together, that's actually quite easy. Whereas actually, if we were face to face, that might be a bit more difficult to organise. So that's quite a nice thing that I've found about starting work online. What about you, Abby?
Yeah, definitely. I would agree with that. I would say it was definitely a little bit weird starting online and not having them kind of face-to-face interactions that you would usually have. But I think with using stuff like social media anyway, I was able to kind of quite quickly fall into the right way of messaging people when it's appropriate to use Teams versus when it's appropriate to email. I would say something that I definitely struggled with at first was kind of knowing the etiquette for Microsoft Teams and Zoom meetings. So if you're joining like a big meeting, putting yourself on mute, whether to have your camera on and off. But I think that's something that all you guys will be quite familiar with now. But it was just a little bit of a learning curve at the beginning. So yeah, any questions at all for anyone? We're really happy to answer anything else if there's any burning questions.
I think there's nothing through on the chat, so I think we should potentially carry on.
Yeah, no worries. So thank you guys for listening to our presentation on communicating confidently. We really hope that you found it useful and you've got some really great things to take away. If you do need any further support, you can head over to our website, which you can see on screen, www.hellofuture.ac.uk, and you can click onto our courses and presentations tab, and here you'll find a wide range of e-courses that we have that you guys can take part in. And the one that we'd recommend that you do is the Identifying Your Strengths e-course, which will tell you through how you can apply some of the strengths that you've identified onto documents like a UCAS application or a CV or anything like that. So at the beginning of each course, there will be a short introduction video to tell you a little bit more about the course. And as you go through, you'll also be able to see your progress. These courses don't have to be done all in one sitting. You can come back to them whenever you would like. So why should you try the courses? First of all, it's a really great way to engage with our programme digitally. You can do this on any device, whether that's your phone, laptop, iPad, anything like that. You can learn at your own pace. As I said, you don't have to do this whole course in one sitting. You can come back to it whenever you like. And finally, it'll allow you to learn new skills and information that will be important for your future and that you can take away. You can also chat with us on our website. So if you head over to the Hello Future website again, there will be a little pop-up at the bottom which will say chat with us, and you can click through and talk to any of our members on the website. There'll be a little biography that you can click through and you can choose who you'd like to talk to.
So this event has been put on as part of Hello Future Live, as well as in partnership with Project NextGen. And we have events going on until the 18th of June. And we'd really love to see you guys at some more of them. I'll put some links in the chat box as well. So I've just put in a link to a main article that gives you all of the different events that are going on. However, next week is our transitions week, and we're going to be talking about preparing for student life in our support surgery, which we're really excited for. And we've also got great talks from Edge Hill and Lancaster University happening next week. Throughout the festival, we have talks from Edge Hill, Lancaster University, and also the University of Cumbria. So please do check out that main schedule if you're interested in any of the themes that you can see on the screen now. And if you have any questions about it at all, please don't hesitate to pop onto the chat with us function on our website.
Thanks, Rosa. Oh, sorry, my slideshow is stuck on the same screen. Has it moved across screen for you guys? Sorry.
It hasn't, no.
Oh, here
There
we
you
go.
go.
I'm just going to pass over to Martin now, who's just going to talk a little bit more about Project NextGen and the survey that they've got to fill out.
Yeah, thank you for that, Abby. Just as I mentioned at the beginning, really, Project NextGen is all about equipping you with the tools and resources that you would need to secure an apprenticeship, be successful in that apprenticeship, or move into further employment. It launched last month in April, and we've got a theme that we're running every single month between now and September. And we would absolutely love it if you could take part in the project. And as I said earlier, taking part in the project will actually certify you to say that you were a participant and an active member in the Project NextGen initiative. So you will get a certificate at the very end in September, and we would recommend that you take that certificate with you to interviews, or definitely reference it when you're making applications to an apprenticeship, etc., because it really does show that you've made an invested effort in that application, and you're really serious about kind of careers and your future employment. So if you do want to participate, please do fill in the participation survey. We will be asking you to sort of continue to fill that out as we move across the project, because what we'd be hoping is that sort of you progress in your sort of employability studies with us as you move throughout the project. So please do get involved, do fill your details in, and then obviously we can send you that certificate at the very end.
Great, thank you. Is there anything else you'd like to add here, Martin?
Yeah, so just to summarize, if you would like to contact any of the team, our details are on screen there. If you would like to be further involved, whether that be via an apprenticeship, or if you were looking to maybe apply in September for a full-time course, all of the details are on our website now. So that's Carlisle College website. Please do visit us and find out a little bit more information on there. If you'd like to interact with us in any other way, of course, please do follow us on our social media channels. We're really active on there. Send us a message, we will get back to you.
Great, thank you. So that is everything from us today. If you would like to keep in contact with Hello Future and find out what other events we have coming up, please do follow us on social media by typing in the handle Hello Future CCOP. You can also head over to our website at any time to see all the free resources we've got for you guys to help you make decisions about your future. And that is everything from us today. So thank you very much for your attention. Thank you for coming along. If there are any questions, don't hesitate to get in touch.